If you were to ask anybody that has grown up playing video games about a certain Capcom series called Ghosts and Goblins, many of the reception you'll probably receive is they've heard of the series and never beaten it. It was incredibly infamous for being one of the hardest games ever released on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Released in the arcades in September 19, 1985, the game would receive great reception and would almost instantly become a classic within the gaming community. While the game would be brutally hard, that wouldn't stop people from flocking to arcades and stuffing quarters into the machine to try and rescue the queen from the devil himself. While other games like Donkey Kong and Gradius would be all about trying to get the highest score, Ghosts and Goblins gave you an objective: defeat Satan and rescue the queen from his clutches. The game would later receive a port of the arcade version to several home consoles, one of them being the NES. The game would go on to sell 1.64 million copies and would quickly become one of Nintendo's best sellers. Fast forward 16 years later to December of 2001 when Capcom would release a spin-off series called Maximo: Ghosts to Glory. Originally developed for the N64 under the title of Ghouls and Ghosts 64, due to limitations from the N64 hardware, the game was shifted in development and released on the PlayStation 2. The original script that was pitched to Capcom for Maximo was extremely different from the version that we ended up getting. Originally, the game was supposed to be an adults-only game and would be titled Maximo: The Dark Knight. The first concept of the game was for it to have violent gameplay, realistic visuals, and a mature storyline. However, this was later changed to suit a more broad audience as we later decided to fit into the Ghosts and Goblins universe. If you're interested in the concept script that was written, you can go ahead and check it out in the description below. It's pretty interesting. The story of Maximo goes something like this. King Maximo goes to war and leaves his kingdom under the control of his trusted advisor Achille. Once returned, Maximo notices that his kingdom is in shambles, and Achille has brought hordes of the undead on the countryside, imprisoned the 4 sorceresses throughout the kingdom, and kidnapped Maximo's beloved Queen Sophia. When he confronts the traitor, King Maximo is struck down by Achille in the throne room and dies, or so it seems. After dying, King Maximo is approached by the Grim Reaper himself and tells the king that Achille is using a drill to harvest souls and bring forth his undead army. Without any dead, the Grim Reaper is out of a job, so he strikes a deal with Maximo to bring the slain ruler back to life in favor of Maximo stopping Achilles' scheme. The art to me is probably one of the highlights of the series, as it keeps the iconic look of the manga artist Suzumu Matsushita, who did work on the original Ghosts and Goblins and more famously known Adventure Island. Suzumu does a great job of bringing the 2D art style into the 3D world and doing a bang-up job about it. The art style is iconic and you can easily tell what the game is by just giving it a quick glimpse. There's nothing like it. The cartoony look gives it its own identity and helps the graphics really pop and hold up to this day. If you compare this game to other classics such as GTA San Andreas, the differences are impeccable. This also helps bring life many aspects of the world. For example, World 1, while probably one of the most boring worlds, could have easily been forgettable due to its bland setting, but it's actually one of the most memorable. Suzumu knew what he was doing and it shows. While the story of Maximo is pretty simple to follow, many consider it to be an incredibly difficult game, currently standing as the 6th hardest game on the PS2 according to IGN, a massive feat considering that the PS2 had a lineup of over 3,800 games. Despite its daunting reputation, however, the game itself is pretty easy to learn but hard to master. Personally, I consider the platforming of the game to be the most difficult aspect of it, since the combat, while a bit clunky, is easy to master. You have your single sword slash, your overhead slash, your downward strike. You can block with your shield. Some enemies may be too short for Maximo to simply slash at, so you can kneel to do some damage as well. You are able to use your shield as a method of defense, however take note that it does have its own life bar which is depleted each time it takes a hit. You'll want to play more offensively because of this rather than cower behind your shield. At this time, I think it's the perfect time to go ahead and mention the most crucial piece of information in combat. If you pause the game, you will see 3 golden slots on the bottom left of the screen. These are where you will store your power-ups. Maximo can use many different powers in the game, such as upgrading your basic attack, a shield throwing attack, the power to turn your shield into a coin collecting magnet, and many more. Additionally, every now and then, enemies will drop a temporary upgrade for your sword that can vary from turning your sword into a flaming sword, a holy light sword, an ice sword, and the final upgrade, Armageddon, which lets you deal quadruple amount of damage. Once you have filled all 3 of the slots with an upgrade, you can still collect more. However, you will lose any other upgrades upon death that aren't within the slots. This can mean that sometimes the order of upgrades you keep in the slots can be really crucial for you in battle. Speaking of death, once you lose all of your lives, you'll be sent to the continues screen. Unlike games with unlimited continues, in Maximo you must have a certain amount of death coins which can be acquired by collecting souls that you can find by destroying monuments throughout each level. Now let's talk about Maximo's armor. Like classic Ghosts and Goblins, Maximo can upgrade his armor a total of 3 times. However, there's one huge thing to take of note here. This game has a life bar. Upon getting another piece of armor, once you're already maxed out, your armor becomes gold that gives you temporary invincibility for a short period of time. There's also another armor upgrade in the form of Mask of Sorrow. Upon picking this unique item up, Maximo is turned into the King of Hell that kills anything within its path and gives you temporary invincibility similar to the golden armor. This is probably the best upgrade in the game, and it's a shame that you can only keep it for a short amount of time, so make sure you take advantage of it while you can. One of my gripes with the game would definitely have to be the camera. The game has a fixed camera, which can sometimes make certain platforming sections really frustrating for the player. While it can be centered, it is a bit of an annoyance having to stop and adjust it, especially when under attack from enemies. This has caused my death a couple of times when playing the game. However, it's not too big of an issue to where it can sour your experience with the game. If you want a tip from me, be patient, adjust the camera, and hope that you don't meet your demise in a platforming section. Throughout each level, you can find secrets hidden within. Some of these secrets will give you armor, coins, an extra life, or in a worst case scenario, a room full of the undead. Additionally, checkpoints are sprinkled within the game, which thankfully make it a lot easier. You can also find two types of chests: standard chests, which can also be mimics, or steel chests, which require a key for you to unlock. Despite the extra effort though, these usually have much better rewards than the regular chests, so if you're ever in a pinch and you have the keys to spare, unlock one of these bad boys and they will surely help out. After completing a level, you are given a level mastery percentage, affected by how many enemies you kill, whether or not you found all hidden chests in the level, and if you managed to collect all the coins. While it can be pretty simple to try, your experience with getting all of 3 of these objectives done is going to be based on what abilities you have equipped in your slots. Once you do get these objectives done, you will be rewarded with a nice 100% completion on the level, a must for any hardcore player. Now that we have pretty much finished talking about levels and gameplay, let's talk about the world of Maximo itself. There are a total of 5 overworlds in all, each of them containing goodies for you to collect and secrets to find. In each world there is a pool you can visit that allows you to teleport between each world that you have unlocked, and it's also where you can save your game. This is one of the biggest quarrels I have with Maximo, as the game requires you to spend 100 coins to save your game. If you don't have enough coins, then tough luck. Time to go beat a level and hope that you have enough by the time you make it back to the overworld. Making it a little harder for you to save was one way of Capcom making some artificial difficulty happen. While later on in the game, if you conserve every coin you find, you won't really run into this issue, but newcomers can easily run out and become irritated at first. If you want a tip from me, save all your coins, save your game, and then go ahead and go on a spending spree with them. For anyone that is interested in playing this game and doesn't want to deal with story spoilers, pause the video, go play the game, then come back. Ready? Set. Spoilers. Each of the 5 worlds has its own boss that relates to the theme of the world. The Boneyard has Ghastly Gus, a pale-skinned ogre with a shovel. Great Dank has Boker Labas, a voodoo doctor that can mess with Maximo with his doll. The Frozen Waste has Captain Cadaver, a ghost of a pirate that uses a pistol. The Spirit Realm has Lord Gutterscum, an overweight demon that uses bile and flames to bring Maximo down. And finally, Castle Maximo has Achilles himself. Upon defeating each of the first 4 bosses, you will rescue one of the 4 sorceresses, who reward Maximo by increasing the amount of upgrades he can permanently have, up to a maximum of 7 slots. This is where the game gets a lot easier. Once you rescue the first sorceress, enemies are a lot easier to handle. The game starts to become rather easy when it comes to enemies. The real challenge, however, comes from the platforming in later levels. Now that I have pretty much explained everything, let's get to the end of the story. Once you complete the levels in Castle Maximo, you are ready to fight Achilles. Unfortunately, the one thing this game lacks in is boss difficulty. All of the bosses disappointingly have the same predictable pattern, which make them incredibly trivial and easy for you to take down. The same even applies to Achilles, so once you get the pattern of his moves down, you can take him down rather easily. After you defeated him, it's time for you to prop your feet up, relax, and enjoy the final cutscene.
To Achilles.
Gone.
Excellent. My plans are nearly complete. Finally, his power transfers to me.
Or so you think. The Queen Sophia you were trying to rescue this whole time reveals that it wasn't really her, but in fact a demon, impersonating her to trick Maximo and Achille. After a short cutscene, you're up against the final boss in the game, the Demon Queen. This boss fight stands out as probably the best one in the entire series. The mood totally shifts to a much more ominous and unsettling atmosphere as you are surrounded by complete darkness. The only thing illuminating the room is occasional lightning and the Demon Queen's yellow eyes, only being seen briefly in the distance before reappearing in front of you at a moment's end. Once she is finally slain, Maximo sits on his rundown throne and starts to contemplate on what to do next. The Grim Reaper tells Maximo that if Sophia was to be dead, he would be the first to know, as he knows what spirits go in and out of the underworld. Together, he and Maximo leave to travel the world in search of Sophia. What a way to end the first game. Notably, a first in the Ghosts and Goblins games, you don't have to beat the game twice to get the true ending, and you don't even rescue the princess. The sequel, Maximo Army of Zin, expands on many aspects seen in the first game. However, that game will definitely have to wait for a video of its own, as this video is getting a little too long and my voice is starting to hurt from talking so much. Now that we pretty much covered the game itself, let's get into some bonus stuff. So you did it. You saved the 4 sorceresses, killed Achilles, and slayed the Demon Queen. Now it's time to move on to the next game, right? Well, if you're the type of person to beat games and move on, then yes, go for it. However, this game does have 2 secrets that you can unlock. The first one is probably the most difficult one. When you rescue each one of the sorceresses, you are given the choice of picking one of the 3 presented items: a kiss, an armor, or a free save. If you get all 4 of the kisses and complete the game with them in your inventory, you will unlock the concept art option. Ultimately, it isn't really worth it unless you just want that nice completion, or if you wanted a bit of a challenge. The last unlockable is achieved once you complete each level with a 100% level mastery. Upon fully completing each level, you'll unlock a secret 31st level called Mastery. This level can be pretty difficult, however by this point you've probably mastered the combat and can easily take down the enemies thrown at you. Congrats! You beat it! The 6th hardest game on the PS2 according to IGN. While the first game had some moderate success, this game still seems to have been forgotten, which is a bit of a dire shame. I hope that in the future Capcom brings this series back, especially now that they have showed interest in remaking old games in their catalog such as Resident Evil 2 and several others they've hinted at. If anyone from Capcom is listening, I implore you to remake this. It's a PS2 classic. While it may have its faults when it comes to combat and camera work, they don't intrude too much on the game, and it's still pretty damn enjoyable to play for anyone wanting a challenge. But this pretty much concludes my look at one of my favorite spin-off games. I do hope that Maximo gets some recognition in the upcoming Marvel vs. Capcom 4 game. However, only time will tell, and all I can do is just sit here, make a video about it, and complain. This has been Irvin, signing off.